Canada has long enjoyed its reputation as one of the world's best countries to live in, consistently ranked highly for its quality of life, economic opportunities, and inclusivity. However, beneath this glowing international image, the country is grappling with an escalating series of socio-economic challenges that threaten its future prosperity and stability. Issues such as rising inflation, unemployment, an affordability crisis in housing, and an overstretched healthcare system have left many Canadians questioning whether the nation's best days are behind it. A country rich in resources, yet facing economic strain. Canada's vast natural resources are central to its economy. As the second largest country in the world by land area, Canada is endowed with abundant reserves of oil, natural gas, potash, and coal. It is also the second largest producer of hydroelectricity globally. Theoretically, these resources should have positioned the nation for economic strength and resilience. Yet the reality is more complex, with the country's resource wealth not translating into economic security for many Canadians. A significant factor contributing to Canada's economic challenges is the volatility of global markets. While oil prices fluctuate, affecting regions heavily dependent on the energy sector, the global shift towards greener energy sources is also influencing how Canada manages its resource-based economy. Despite these resources, Canada has not been immune to broader economic pressures that have emerged from global supply chain disruptions, the COVID-19 pandemic, and shifting geopolitical landscapes. Inflation and the rising cost of living. One of the most pressing issues facing Canadians is inflation, which has driven up the cost of living to alarming levels. In 2022, inflation in Canada reached its highest point in 40 years. Even though inflation rates have cooled somewhat since then, the consequences linger. Canadians are finding it harder to afford everyday necessities like housing, food, and transportation, which have seen unprecedented price hikes. A critical driver of inflation in Canada has been supply chain disruptions triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic-induced shortages of goods, coupled with increased demand as economies reopened, fueled rising prices across sectors. The Canadian government, like many others, responded with expansive fiscal measures to support households and businesses during the height of the pandemic. However, these actions contributed to rising government debt and, coupled with supply shortages, stoked inflation. Housing in particular has become a flashpoint for many Canadians, with home prices in major cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal soaring. The average home price in Canada has almost doubled over the last decade, making it one of the most expensive housing markets globally. This issue is exacerbated by speculative investments, foreign buyers, and insufficient government policies to curb the trend. Renters have not been spared either, as rental costs have similarly surged, leaving many households stretched thin financially. The crisis in housing affordability. For many Canadians, owning a home is increasingly out of reach. The surge in real estate prices has been driven by a combination of factors, including a lack of adequate housing supply, increasing demand, and foreign investment, particularly in key urban centers like Toronto and Vancouver. Speculative buying and investment-driven demand have inflated prices, making housing unaffordable for a growing number of people. In addition to rising home prices, mortgage rates have also increased, adding further strain to household budgets. The Bank of Canada's interest rate hikes aimed at curbing inflation have resulted in higher borrowing costs, pushing more Canadians into precarious financial positions. First-time home buyers, in particular, are facing significant barriers to entry, with many turning to renting as their only viable option, only to find that rents have similarly skyrocketed. The housing affordability crisis is not only a problem for potential homeowners. Renters across the country are also grappling with soaring costs, with many struggling to find affordable rental units. In some cases, this has led to increased homelessness, particularly in urban areas where the demand for housing far outstrips supply. Employment and job market challenges. While Canada's official unemployment rate hovered around 5% in 2023, a deeper look at the labor market reveals significant challenges, particularly for young people, immigrants, and marginalized communities. Underemployment, job insecurity, and stagnant wages continue to plague many sectors of the economy. The once booming tech sector, for example, has experienced significant layoffs, leaving recent graduates and skilled workers without stable employment prospects. The COVID-19 pandemic further disrupted the labor market, disproportionately affecting service industries like hospitality, retail, and tourism. While some sectors have rebounded, others have not fully recovered, leaving many Canadians without stable jobs. The pandemic also accelerated the trend toward automation and digitalization, which, while creating opportunities in some industries, has displaced workers in others. For young people, the challenge is particularly acute. Many recent graduates face difficulties finding stable, well-paying jobs that align with their qualifications. Instead, many are taking on temporary or part-time work, often unrelated to their field of study, just to make ends meet. This has long-term implications for their financial security and career development. Healthcare, a system under strain. Canada's healthcare system, often regarded as one of the country's greatest achievements, is also under immense pressure. Growing wait times for medical procedures, a shortage of healthcare professionals, and underfunded hospitals have left many Canadians struggling to access timely care. In some regions, wait times for specialist consultations and surgeries have reached critical levels, with patients waiting months or even years for treatment. The pandemic exposed significant vulnerabilities in the healthcare system. Hospitals were overwhelmed and healthcare workers were stretched to their limits. While Canada's universal healthcare system provides essential coverage for all residents, the strain on resources has led to inefficiencies, including delays in cancer screenings, elective surgeries, and mental health services. The shortages of healthcare professionals, particularly in rural and remote areas, further compound the issue. Canada's aging population is also placing increasing demands on the healthcare system, with a growing need for long-term care and chronic disease management. While the government has made efforts to address some of these issues, the overall system remains under strain and public dissatisfaction is growing. Political climate, declining trust in leadership. Politically, Canada is at a crossroads. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, once hailed for his progressive policies and inclusivity, now faces mounting criticism for his handling of key issues, including the economy, healthcare, and the housing crisis. Trudeau's approval ratings have declined significantly, with many Canadians expressing frustration over his government's perceived lack of action on these pressing issues. The public's dissatisfaction with Trudeau's leadership has opened the door for political opposition. As Canada approaches its next federal election in 2025, there is growing speculation about whether Trudeau's Liberal Party will be able to maintain its hold on power. The Conservative Party, led by Pierre Poilievre, has capitalized on growing discontent, particularly around the cost of living and housing affordability, positioning itself as a viable alternative. One of the central criticisms of the Trudeau government has been its handling of fiscal policy, particularly in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. While the government's stimulus measures provided crucial support during the crisis, they have also contributed to rising inflation and a growing national debt. Many Canadians now question whether these policies were the right course of action, especially given the long-term economic challenges the country faces. Immigration and the brain drain. Immigration has long been a cornerstone of Canada's identity, with the country often lauded for its welcoming stance toward newcomers. However, rising living costs and economic uncertainty have made it harder for immigrants to integrate and thrive. Many skilled immigrants face barriers in finding jobs that match their qualifications, often settling for lower-paying positions that do not utilize their skills. At the same time, a growing number of young Canadians are choosing to leave the country in search of better opportunities abroad, contributing to a brain drain. This trend is particularly concerning as it reflects a loss of talent and innovation that could otherwise help drive the Canadian economy forward. Can Canada recover? Canada's future is uncertain. The country faces a confluence of economic, social, and political challenges that will require decisive action in the coming years. While Canada's natural resources, strong institutions, and historical resilience provide a foundation for recovery, much will depend on the decisions made by the country's leaders. Addressing the housing crisis will require bold and coordinated action, including policies to increase housing supply, regulate speculative investments, and provide affordable housing options for all Canadians. Tackling inflation and the rising cost of living will necessitate prudent fiscal management and targeted support for those most affected. Healthcare reform is also crucial. Investments in healthcare infrastructure, better support for healthcare workers, and innovative solutions to reduce wait times and improve access to care will be needed to restore public confidence in the system. Politically, the 2025 election will be a pivotal moment for Canada. Whether Justin Trudeau can regain public trust or whether new leadership will emerge to guide the country through these turbulent times remains to be seen.